All right, so harvested all the red ones. A couple of them will have to be wrapped in newsprint because they're a nice bright red on one side, orangey red on one side, and almost green on the inside because of all the tomatoes that were on the certain vine, eh? But anyways, we'll let Mother Nature work on the rest. So I just left the other ones to ripen up a little bit. Like even that one there is still yellow on the other side with a little bit of green. And same with these two, still have green on it. Same as these two, they can go another couple days. So anyways, that was a good little harvest. I'll show you the tomatoes. It's Wednesday, September 21st. Tonight, it's supposed to go below zero. Lots of frost. So I had to pick whatever was close to being red, except for the one green one. That fell off with my big size 12 feet. But anyways, yeah, it's starting to dwindle down now. I have probably 2, maybe 3 times this still in the garden, but it's all green. I'll just have to cover it tonight and leave it covered for the next couple of days. And probably on Saturday, it's supposed to be nice again. I'll be able to uncover the garden and see what's what. All right, back to canning. Well, good day, everybody. Glad you could join me today. This video here is going to be about canning tomatoes. We're going to go through the process and everything that we do in canning beautiful tomatoes. So anyways, just stick around and let's can some tomatoes. Easy task. We're just going to remove the core and then just give the tomato a split. And that's all we do. Once they're split, what we do is we just take our bag and we fill up the bag, and then that way it's nice and flat for the freezer. So there you go, that's all we do. Then we'll fill up the freezer, freeze them solid. Then when we got enough for the canning, we'll take them out. We'll start the unthawing process. And again, it makes it so much easier to peel. And we're going to show you that too. So just stand by. All right, so to continue on. So anyways, now the tomatoes are frozen. So we just took them out of the freezer. And we're going to leave them in the sink to unthaw. And like I was saying, once they're unthawed and everything's ready, all we do is we grab the tomato, we give it a pinch, and it'll remove the skins very easy. So anyways, I'll get back to you with that because now it's going to be the unthawing process. All right, so now it's you've seen where I showed they're sitting in the sink, just starting to unthaw. Now, the easiest way to remove the skin is just to run a little bit of warm water, hot water, or tap water in a bowl with your tomatoes, give it a little swirl, dump it out, okay? Now, for peeling them, very easy. When you grab them, just give them a pinch. There we go. Again, I'll try to come a little closer. Here we go. Just give it a little pinch. There's the skin. All right. Try it again. Grab your tomato, give it a pinch, like I said. There it is. Again, the other side. Just give it a pinch. Very, very easy to remove the skins off your tomatoes once it's frozen. Look at that. Very easy. Totally, totally skinned. Again, you can even just pinch it sideways, remove it, the other side, there it is. It's a great method, you know what I mean? It's a lot easier to freeze your tomatoes first, than rather than trying to boil them and using a knife or whatever just to pull off the skins. So easy doing it this way. Then when you're done, you're left with all your skins in a bowl, which you know yourself, I got plans for that. I'm going to dehydrate that and turn it into a fine powder that I mix with spices. So once you've got the skins removed, just quarter them. So once that's done, just throw everything into your colander. Let it unthaw some more. And what's going to happen is a lot of the water will come out of your tomatoes and drip into your pan. And then we'll save that for something else. But that's the easiest way to remove your skins from your tomatoes. Works great. All right, let's get canning. So this is just what I've done so far, okay? Now this is a fair sized bowl. Again, all the tomatoes are quartered. So I put it in a strainer, dump it in here, and this is full of juice. Okay, so let me just put that aside here. All right. So now this here will get me started, right? These are now ready to start canning, right? And like they're still frozen, okay? You can see they're still frozen. So I'm going to let that sit until they start to unthaw real good. And by doing that, I'm going to get probably that much more liquid. And I'm going to be removing that. I don't want the liquid in my stewed tomatoes. I want tomatoes in my stewed tomatoes. So anyways, I find this the best way to skin tomatoes. Take your bags, fill them up nice and flat, put them in the freezer, freeze them solid. Once they're frozen solid, just take them out, set up your hot water, your warm water out of the tap, that's all we use. And what we do is we just open the Ziploc bags, fill it all with warm water, and then once that's done, a minute, 2 minutes, and then I can easily remove the skins. And this is what we got left, and they're still frozen. Now, the old way of picking your tomatoes, bringing them in the house, setting up a pot, and starting to boil them, and then taking a paring knife and the tedious way of skinning them, that's no more. This is the easiest way to do it, you know. If you got room in your freezer, it doesn't take long. If you only got room for 4 or 5 bags, then just do 4 or 5 bags at a time. But this here, I find is the easiest way to skin your tomatoes. All right? So now that I got this out, and I'm ready to process everything and start canning, now I got room in the bottom of my freezer to put about another 7 or 8 bags of tomatoes. So there you go. There's another one ready to freeze. All we got to do is wash them and then bag them and freeze them. And here's another one. But see, we didn't have room in the freezer for all these because that took up the space. But now that we're going to start canning that, we can start bagging these two, put it in the freezer, and we'll get another load like that for our next session. Alright, so anyways, I'm going to remove all this. I'm going to let this unthaw now because it's still frozen. That way all the liquid will extract out of it. And I'll get back to you when it's time to fill up the jars and continue canning. So anyways, I have 4 colanders in pots with all my tomatoes. Now that they're everything's unthawed, I got more over there, but there's just only so much room on my centerpiece here. But just to give you an idea, you know, I'll bring the small one. All right, so that's my tomatoes, okay, that I've taken all the juices out and whatnot. But in here, I have juice, right? You see the juice? Okay, and it's still dripping, see? Well, in all the tomatoes that I cut that I showed you in that big bowl, the amount of water I took out would have filled this Brita probably 5 times. That's how much water I took out of these tomatoes. So now, when I start the process of my canning and I'm filling my jars, I know that there's a lot of liquid in here that will not be in my jars of tomatoes. Now I've drained this already probably 4 times, and as you can still see, I'm still getting a lot of water. So anyways, if you don't want your jars to be half water, you're best to leave it sit, use colanders, and just squeeze out the excess water. That way when you can your jars, you're going to get nothing but tomatoes in it. And you'll only get a little bit of liquid on the top of your jars. So anyways, I'm just going to finish processing this, making sure, you know, 80% of the water is out. That's all I need. And then we're going to get into some canning. All right, so just to show you, I still have juice in with the tomatoes. It's not juice free or nothing like that, but there's just not lots, right? In here is all my juice, but that does not go down the sink, that. Okay, the first thing I do is measure it, 1 cup servings. Okay, so that's 1 cup serving. All right, so there you go. Fits perfect for these containers. The containers itself I bought on Amazon. They're nice and small. They hold 1 cup of liquid very well. Most recipes that you have calls for 1 cup. So what I'm going to do is put these in the freezer, and because they're rectangle, they stack very well and they freeze very, very well. And then whenever we make a stew, or whenever we're doing a pot roast and it asks for tomato juice or something like that, well, you know what? This is what I put in it. So I'm just shy a little bit, so I'll just take a little bit out of here. Okay, so there you go. Nothing gets waste. So right now, I have 3 servings of tomato juice that I strained from my tomatoes from being in the freezer. And now that I'm going to start canning my tomatoes, I can freeze the juice and use that for further cooking. So now that I got the containers full of the tomato juice, I got the label on them, so everything's labeled. Now we'll know what it is when it's frozen, and now it's time to put it in the bottom of the freezer. Label everything, and you'll always know what you have, and keep notes of what's in your freezer. All right, so now it's time to fill the jars. Okay, so each of these jars are 1 liter, 1,000 milliliters of substance, okay? Now, prior to packing your tomatoes, you have to put 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in each jar, all right? So that's 2 tablespoons. So that is what I have there, all right? So in every one, I'll put 2 tablespoons. Don't forget to give it a shake. Okay, I'll start off with 4 jars. Recap. In the fridge. There we go. All right. Now again, we need the cloth to clean the rim. I also have the caps in the hot water, softening up the rubber seal, same as when I did the pickles. I do have my other snap rings here. All right. The only difference is the lemon juice. Now when you're packing your jars, you got to follow the rule of thumb, where you pack them a ½ inch from the top to allow for breathing room. Okay, you need that space at the top. All right. Okay, and the same as everything else, air is your enemy. You've got to get rid of that air. So don't be shy. Oh, you could hear it burping. You got to remove the air. Okay, now same thing, following the same as when I did the pickles. When you look at your thread, okay. The middle thread, fill it up to there, and that'll always give you your ½ inch headspace. So again, sure you clean the rim. Get all your debris off. There we go. You have your lid. There you go, that's 1 jar. I'll fill up the other jars, see what I got left, and I'll get back to you. Okay, so how's that for guesswork? I figured I had at least 4 jars, and that's what I ended up with, so that's all I prepped was 4 jars. And I got about a ½ cup left in the container. I'll put a lid on that, throw that in the fridge with the rest of my tomatoes that are freezing. And when I start to make the next batch, there you go, I'll throw that in. But for now, these are my jars. And as you can see, now that's full, right to the breathing point. I still got some air, ½ an inch here of breathing space. But as you can see, right now, hardly any liquid at all. So that's why I always take as much juice out as possible, and it doesn't go for a waste. It's in the freezer, and that's for another soup or whatever. But that's how I fill up my jars, and that's how I process for my stewed tomatoes. So now I'm going to get the canner ready. I'm going to get everything on. I'll get these placed, and I'll get right back to you. So right now, I'm starting to set up my canner. Now this is a pressure canner. This is not a hot water bath. This is a pressure canner. So usually I have 7 jars in here, but I only got a 4 jar capacity right now with my tomatoes. Originally I would have had to put 8 cups of water in here, but because I'm only using 4 jars, I have to put 10 cups of water in here. And also in here I put 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Okay, 1 tablespoon of vinegar. And what that does is when it's going through the process, it's going to keep the pot nice and clean. All right, and make sure you got 10 cups of water because this is not going to be full capacity. So I already have 8 in there. I got 2 more here. So there you go. I now have the 10 cups of water in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place the lid on, lock her up. I'm going to turn my stove on high. Now I'm just going to show you a thing. Okay. So when you're looking at the lid, this here is the vent. So once I start seeing steam coming out of the vent, I put the timer on for 10 minutes. All right. Once it's on for 10 minutes, what I'm going to do is use my glove, make sure I got a glove on, and I'm going to put this here controller, which is 5, 10, and 15. Okay, that's your pressure. So that's 10 foot-pounds, 15 foot-pounds, 5 foot-pound pressure. I'll be putting that on top, adjusting my heat, because this here has to vent so many times a minute. We'll cross that bridge when it comes. So right now, that's what this piece is for, but we'll leave that aside until we can get this here venting and steaming for 10 minutes. Now remember, this here's my canner, okay? This is my pressure canner. Therefore, I have instructions for this. When you're doing your own canning and using a high pressure canner, you have to follow your own instructions that come with your apparatus. Okay, I'm not responsible for anything blowing up in your household because you're watching this video and you thought you could do the same thing. You follow your own instructions for your own canner, because you have to visually check your vent to make sure it's not blocked. You got to check your rubber seal. There's a lot of things you got to look at to make sure everything's top notch. All right. Then when you put it on, you got to follow the arrows of your pot. See right here, you see the arrows. Okay. And that's how to close it and tighten it. So what you do is you put it on. There it is. Okay. My arrows are lining up. Everything's lining up. This is on. Now I got to lock it in place, right? So by locking it in place, I got to spin it basically until the handles line up. Okay. All right. You can see it starting to vent now. So I just pressed the timer for 10 minutes on my microwave. Now that's got to vent for 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, I'll put my little camasava on it, 5, 10, 15 pounds. Okay, I'll put the 10 pound on, and then I'm going to have to play with my stove so that this rocks 3 times a minute. All right? So I'll get back to you when that time comes. All right, so that's 10 minutes. You can hear it's boiling pretty good in there. You can see the steam pretty good. So now I'll set the rocker to 10 pounds. Again with my glove. You can hear lots of pressure. Okay, now that it's on there, when it starts rocking, it's just got to rock vigorously, like that, 3 times a minute. So I got to play with the heat. So for now, it's set at max. So I will probably have to turn that down, probably 7 or 8 instead of having it at 10. Okay. Now, this here canner is a 22 quart canner. All right? 22 quart. That's all we use it for. Make sure it's in perfect working order. Make sure everything's new or fairly new. There's no damage to the rubber. Again, make sure the vent is clear, not plugged. Make sure it's locked. Now, also, when this here starts to pressurize and starting to vibrate, and we got to calculate it to 3 times a minute, this here is going to probably be 25 minutes. When that starts to jiggle, we'll set the timer again, and then after the 25 minutes, I'm going to shut the heat right off. Once the heat gets shut right off, I will not touch this for at least an hour. I will not touch it at all. Matter of fact, it's getting late right now, so I'll just leave that right until morning. But let's say it was midday. Well, at midday, I would wait at least an hour before even looking at it or attempting to touch it. Because if I touch that in any way, the contents of this could erupt and blow off the lid. Again, this can be dangerous, this machine. Remember that. So I'm going to leave the heat up, get that rocking, and then once it's time for 25-30 minutes, that's it. I'm going to shut her down, and I'm going to wait till morning before I open that up. All right? When it gets rocking, I'll get back to you. Okay? Now you can see it moving. You can hear it. I started the timer for 25 minutes. Now I got to regulate that, slow it down, so it only rocks 3 to 4 times a minute. Right now it's non-stop because it's got to cool down a little bit. There. All right, so let's put the timer on. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. I got it down to 3. And that's 4. That was the last minute. Now I'm going to shut the heat off. There we go. Stove's off. Everything's off. Lights off. Nobody home. Now it's getting late tonight, so I'm just going to let that stay right there, and I'm not going to touch it whatsoever, and we'll deal with that in the morning. By morning it'll be cool enough that I can touch that. All right, don't move anything on top. Don't try to take that off. Just leave it right there for safety reasons. and we'll see you in the morning. Okay, so it's first thing in the morning. Pretty bright. Let's turn it off. All right, so again, it's cool. It's been sitting all night. This is the rocker. Okay, we'll take that off. Examine everything. Everything's cool. All the steam water came out. All right. Now, when you put this down on the counter, make sure it goes back down this way. That way you don't damage your spout, okay? No matter how wet or how dirty or whatever, make sure it goes back down on the counter this way. All right. So there's the jars, okay? It's all tucked in there pretty nice. Still have well over 1.5 inches of water in the bottom. So let's just dry this up. All right, let's take out the jars. All right, so there's the jars. Okay, I got the camera tilted, so I'm gonna tilt her back to normal, and we'll take a look at these jars. All right. Okay, all the lids are sealed. Now, if you look at the lid, okay, here I'll go close, see the bottom part? Right here, you got what? A little over 1/4 inch of water. That's it, 1/4 inch of water. The rest is all tomatoes. And again, it's concaved, so you know it's sealed very well. So now I'm going to put that on the counter, and I'm not going to touch it for 24 hours. And you can see they're all that way. See, it's still got water in it, still got liquid in it. Perfectly stewed. Okay. Really noticeable here. And the last one. There you go. Now, that's a perfect jar of stewed tomatoes, all right? Too many times I've seen stewed tomatoes from myself in the very past and other people where the stewed tomatoes are about from here down, and you get, you know, almost half to at least 1/3 is water. And the weight's not there. Here, the weight's here. This is all stewed tomatoes now with just a little bit of water. And that's what I want for when I'm making my spaghetti sauces, or when I make a couple of smaller jars. Like this is 1,000 mils, but sometimes I'll make 8 or 9 or whatever, or 7, a whole load of the 500 mils, and I'll keep that when I have toast. Sometimes I'll just want for breakfast or late evening snack or something like that. I'll open a smaller jar, have a couple of toast and butter, and stewed tomatoes, eh? But anyways, this is what you're looking for. If you want half water and half tomatoes, that's fine, but that's not what I want. So anyways, that's just a little trick in how to can tomatoes. And I still have a full garden of green. I've done 4 jars, and I'll bring you back when the canning's complete to show you how many jars I got out of my garden this year. But anyways, in my opinion, that is a perfect jar of stewed tomatoes. Be right back. I'll show you what I've done. Well, we've completed the stewing of tomatoes. So these here are 1 liter jars, 1,000 milliliters. And as you can see, we ended up with 40. So that was a lot of tomatoes. Lots of tomatoes. Now, how many? I don't know, because we ate and toasted tomatoes this and salads and that and whatever we couldn't catch up with, we picked and we stewed them. But yeah, it worked out great. And remember what I was saying about the water, right? Eliminate as much water as possible. And by doing that, you get majority, as you can see on the bottom, it's all tomatoes. Hardly any juice whatsoever. Okay. All tomatoes. And then on this side, just to show you. Okay. Now, when we stew our tomatoes, we also put lemon juice in the bottom. And that just helps with the acidity. And that gives you a little bit of juice also. So, that's completed. Now it's getting cold out. There's no more red tomatoes in the garden whatsoever. But now it's time to go out there and pick all the tomatoes, all the green tomatoes. And when I do that, I'll bring them in the house, clean them up, and I think it's time to make some chow chow and some green tomato ketchup, which is the same thing. So that's going to be my next project. So anyways, thank you very much for dropping by. Again, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, ring that bell, and subscribe, and leave me a comment. All right, so you guys take care. Thanks for dropping by, and start canning. It'll pay off in the long run. Eat what you can and preserve the rest. I think after I do the chow chow, I'm going to start picking my peppers and maybe doing red pepper jelly, hot pepper jelly. We'll see when the time comes. But my next task is the chow chow. So, thanks for dropping by, guys. See you on the next video. Bye now.